Welcome everyone, Costin here with some gunpowder unit testing for the Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs DLC. Now, gunpowder units will all pretty much work the same way. Sure, their firing rate may be different, but they're basically projectiles that need a relatively clear line of sight in order to fire. That has been the case all the time in Total War, though certainly gunpowder units in Warhammer 3 have been fairly weak. They've struggled to get shots off, so over here I'm going to do some testing. I have 3 units, Chaos Dwarf blunderbusses, the Granite Guard, their Regiment or Renowned version, and the Infernal Guard with Fireglaves, which are probably one of the best, if not the best unit, gunpowder unit in the entire game. Though they're a hybrid unit, so they're pretty decent in melee as well. Then we also have 3 Hobgoblin Archers to give you the difference between Archers and gunpowder units. Now over here, there's 2 Slaaneshi Marauder units with Hell Scourges over here. They don't have the best armor in the world, though they do have Bronze Shield. So we're going to compare 3 very weak archer units in comparison to some much more expensive gunpowder units in various scenarios. We're going to attack the walls, and we're going to break down the walls going to the settlement and see how they handle over there as well in a settlement situation. Alright, let's start firing, and I'm just going to move Astrogoth closer to the settlement and move to take down walls. So first barrage of arrows over there coming in. Now, looking at the gunpowder units, let's see how many of them actually fire. So in this situation, it does seem like a lot of them are firing, but they do have a pretty clear line of sight. Bear in mind that these guys do a lot more damage than the Hobgoblin Archers. Like, their missile strength is substantially higher. Like, we're looking at 33 for the Fireglaves, 49 for the Regiment Renowned, and 49 as well for the regular ones. Let's see who ends up winning. Now, the issue with attacking units on the wall, it's also an issue that archer units can have if you're not giving that particular order. So I think these guys just weren't really firing over here. But let's see who manages to win this particular duel between units over here. So all of them are firing over here. That is good. Though I'm already seeing like some situations like where some of these models may not necessarily be firing. In fact, the Granite Guard just basically it's just not firing at all right now. The blunderbusses here, the regular blunderbusses, are still shooting over here, but the Granite Guard have stopped shooting, and these guys have basically been driven from the walls. This particular unit has been driven from the walls. These guys are also moving. Enemy units will do this, so let's just give them an attack order and try and see what happens if they're doing that. This is probably one of the worst scenarios that you can throw a gunpowder unit in, because it's elevated line of sight, and there's a lot of issues in general for range units when it comes to shooting units on the walls. But by the looks of it, it does seem like, while these units over here, when they do shoot, are going to do a lot of damage, the Hobgoblins have a more reliable firing rate than the gunpowder units. If not for their much weaker damage, I would assume like the Hobgoblins would actually win this range duels over here. But of course, this is changed by this is mitigated by the fact that, of course, like these units are running off the walls, on the walls, all that kind of stuff. So that's a situation in terms of attacking the walls. I think it feels very similar to what we have in the current live version of the game. So now I'm just going to use Astrogoth, who does, by the way, have Wall Breaker. I'm going to use him to break down the walls. We're going to get inside, and we're going to fight the street battle with gunpowder units. Okay, so I just breached open the walls. Let's just start shooting with the Hobgoblins and see what they're going to do over here as a ranged archer unit. And we're just going to give them the order to shoot these guys over here that are on the rubble. Will they get that shot off? And they will, as expected. Now, I'm going to move Astrogoth to just lure these guys down here, and also enable these guys to just shoot at will. We're just going to stop shooting over here, because we know archer units can be effective in this particular situation, and we're going to start capturing the gatehouse, and hopefully luring some of these Slaaneshi units to come down and play, so to speak. That is my goal, though there's quite a few of them apparently stuck over there on on the wall. Now, the reason he's got wall breaker, I think it's because he can't go on the wall. So, over here, these guys are allowed to shoot. Are they shooting at the units down there? No. Let's give them a direct order to shoot at the unit down here, by the way, and see if they're going to do it. So, looking at this particular situation, you can see some of the models are shooting for the open gate. Let's try and do this even in a more clever way and just position them in a narrow field, in a narrow column, and just see if they're going to be able to get those shots off. Direct line of sight, like all of them should be able to fire. Some of them aren't able to fire still by the looks of it, so the effectiveness over here is still limited. Now, that's probably because Astrogoth is in their direct line of sight. So we're just going to move Astrogoth over here on the side a bit and just see what they're going to do. Are they going to be more effective? The answer is a resounding no. So let's just stop them from firing with the direct order. Just put them with firing at will. They're not doing anything. If I give them the order to fire, only some of the models, only a handful of the models are getting any shots off. And these guys, by the way, who have had a direct line of sight over here, have basically done very, very little over here, if anything at all, really. It doesn't seem like they're shooting at all in any way. So I think what's happening with gunpowder units, the way gunpowder units seem to operate, this is just my impression, it's based on a couple of factors. One, it's having as many models of your own unit within line of sight of the enemy unit. But also, if you're targeting a unit specifically, then most of their models, or a majority of their models, also need to be in line of sight. Like, they won't fire unless they're seeing the majority of those models there. So a lot of the models here are actually protected by the wall here. So that's why these guys are not getting any shots off, I believe. So that's the situation we're going to encounter when you're trying to breach the walls over here. But Chaos Dwarfs do have plenty of possibilities of going through the walls. But obviously, not having your gunpowder units being effective, whereas your archer units are certainly effective in terms of like just shooting. Because if I give these like hobgoblin units over here, right, they're just going to shoot directly through the wall. Maybe they'll shoot the wall, but they're certainly not going to struggle. Whereas if I just give these fire glaives an order to assault, like they've got, like you can see that they've got the direct line of sight over here, and they're just simply not getting those shots off. Okay, so we've seen that in action. Let's just move inside the settlement itself over here. And I think I might actually just take some more units over here of blunderbusses in this situation. But we're getting the blunderbusses here. Let's see if we're going to get a shot off in a settlement. So once they're at clear ground, clear line of sight, they're getting the shots off. But if they were to encounter any kind of terrain elevation, like here, for instance, like if I had them here shooting at this unit, they probably would struggle to get any shots off. And now they're being engaged in melee by marauders. They can handle it. It's no real issue. But still, I think... So I think when you're dealing with gunpowder units, when you're dealing with any kind of obstruction, when you're dealing with any kind of like terrain type, or when you're dealing with castle walls, like gunpowder units have not really improved in any way, shape, or form based on what we've seen before. However, I will say this much, that on an open battle, with clear line of sight, with clear elevation, they seem more willing to shoot, but even then. When one of your units is engaged with the enemy unit, it can be tricky to get these guys to shoot. So I think there are some improvements with the field battles, but I'm not seeing any real improvements when we're talking about siege battles with gunpowder units. And this is an issue not necessarily for the Chaos Dwarfs, I'd argue, I think. This is more of an issue for other factions like Kislev, Streltsy, all that kind of stuff, because the Chaos Dwarfs can win siege battles in other ways, right? But if you're Kislev, if you're the Empire, if you're the Vampire Coast, then this kind of situation can be a major, major issue. Because if your gunpowder units, if obstructions and sieges limit your gunpowder units, then that becomes a major problem for those kind of factions that do rely heavily on gunpowder. So just let them shoot at will. How many of them will get the shot? So over here, they're gonna get the shot. Like if I put them right in the breach, they're gonna struggle. But even here, I just move these guys a bit away. Like even in this kind of situation, you can see that still they might struggle in some situations. And they're especially gonna struggle like at very short range in a siege over here. And yeah, that's basically all there is to show for it, right? If you get the clear line of sight. Like, it's such a bewildering situation in like a wall breach situation, because sometimes you get effective shots, but other times you just don't get effective shots off. It is a bewildering, a bit of a bewildering situation. So there's a lot of micromanagement involved with gunpowder units. When they do shoot, they can be very effective, but getting those shots off is something of a nightmare. Cosin signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.